Welcome to the political safari, where cold-blooded creatures slither through the halls of power, wrapping themselves around legislation, squeezing the life out of accountability, and striking when the moment is right. Today, we journey into the depths of the DC swamp, where the air is thick with deception, and the creatures lurking in the shadows have forked tongues and an appetite for power. And there, coiled around the speaker's gavel, basking under the heat lamp of corruption, is one of the most cunning serpents to ever inhabit the political wilds. Crikey! Look at that massive swamp viper in its natural habitat, Congress. That, my friends, is Nancy Pelosi, the swamp serpent. This reptilian relic has slithered through the corridors of power for decades, adapting, shedding her skin when necessary, and always tightening her grip on Washington. And if you get too close, she won't lunge. She'll just slowly drain the life from anything that threatens her reign.
Nobody knows better than Donald Trump that he should not be president. The president doesn't believe in governance. I take issue with a person presenting himself as a genius.
All while flashing that unsettling frozen grin. If Congress were a jungle, Pelosi wouldn't be the apex predator like a lion or the brute force of a rhino. No, she'd be the anaconda, hiding beneath the surface, patient, calculating, and always ready to wrap around a lucrative opportunity. Her approval rating, about as high as the air quality in a swamp. Even her own kind eye her warily, knowing full well that this serpent's loyalty lasts only as long as her interests are protected.
I think the president is a coward when it comes to helping our kids who are afraid of gun violence. I think he is cruel when he doesn't deal with helping our dreamers.
But make no mistake, this cold-blooded operator isn't just lurking. She's strategizing, coiling herself around bills and ensuring that nothing gets through unless it personally benefits her. So, just how deep does this swamp go? That's where the swamp score comes into play. All right, let's follow the snake tracks through the underbrush and see how tightly this old viper constricts democracy. We're running old Pelosi through the swamp score, a system designed to measure just how deep a politician is embedded in corruption. It's like tagging a boa, only to find out it's been swallowing Wall Street cash whole for decades. First up, the Bribe-O-Meter. Because a serpent this big doesn't get fat without a steady diet of corporate money. Her official salary? $174,000 a year. Her net worth? Over $100 million. Either she found a stock market cheat code, or she's been swallowing donor cash like a python, digesting a wild boar. And who's feeding this serpent? Let's take a look at the menu. BlackRock, the hedge fund overlords, keeping the financial swamp nice and murky. Big Pharma, the venomous lords of overpriced medicine. Google, the digital watchdogs making sure information flows exactly where the highest bidder wants. Basically, the swamp's most elite predators, ensuring their pet serpent remains well-fed. Her final score on the Bribe-O-Meter? A 9 out of 10. Because even the snake pit at Goldman Sachs bows to this level of financial acrobatics. Next up, the political spine density test. Let's see if Pelosi has anything resembling a backbone. In nature, creatures either stand their ground or they slither away when danger arises. In Washington, it's about knowing when to shed your skin and pretend to be something else. Old Nancy has mastered the art of political mimicry. She shifts colors depending on who's watching.
My view of this, and I've said it before, Facebook, all of them, they're all about making money. Their business model is to make money at the expense of the truth and the facts and that they know. And they defend that. I think Facebook has made tens of billions of dollars during this period of time when people are so reliant on social media. And they testify that they have no responsibility for the truth.
She vowed to fight corporate greed, but made sure Congress kept its stock trading privileges.
Insider just completed a 5-month investigation, finding that 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act, the insider trading law. I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that, and secondly, should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be. Yeah. Because this is a free market and we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
She promised to stand with the working class.
We will not rest until we pass the $15 minimum wage.
But conveniently ensured minimum wage increases never reached a vote. She condemned Wall Street influence, while cashing more checks than a payday lender. When it comes to having a backbone, this serpent is more flexible than an octopus at a yoga retreat. Her final score on the political spine density test, 10 out of 10, because a snake doesn't need a spine, it just coils tighter when the pressure's on. Now, let's examine how she actually impacts the ecosystem. That brings us to the Legislative Bootlicker Index, a measure of just how much her policies serve donors over voters. In nature, the biggest predators maintain the balance. But in Washington, the biggest creatures make sure the ecosystem only benefits them. Pelosi's role? Gatekeeper of the swamp. No major decision happens without her coils wrapped firmly around it. Here's just a short list of her environmental destruction. Blocking. Meaningful campaign finance reform. Opposing. Any effort to restrict congressional stock trading. Stalling. Anti-monopoly laws that might threaten corporate overlords. Protecting. A financial ecosystem where the ultra-wealthy keep getting richer. Meanwhile, if billionaires need tax loopholes, or pharmaceutical giants need price protections, the swamp serpent is already slithering toward the deal, pen in hand, ready to strike. Her final score on the Legislative Bootlicker Index, 9.5 out of 10, because she's coiled around the establishment tighter than a python around its next meal. And finally, let's see how quickly she betrays those who trust her. This is the public backstab barometer, because in the wild, even the most revered creatures can turn on their own kind. When Pelosi had the chance to back politicians who actually threatened the system, she coiled up and struck them down. Bernie Sanders, too unpredictable. Pelosi said, no.
Bernie Sanders knows what's at stake in this election, what's on the line. I have no doubt that he will be very constructive as we go forward. I also know it's very hard not to win, and it's hard for your supporters especially.
Progressives pushing for real healthcare reform. The swamp serpent hissed and blocked the way. Any movement that threatened corporate donations, this viper ensured it never made it past the nest. Meanwhile, if it's a corporate-backed, war-hawk politician maintaining the status quo, Pelosi rolls out the red carpet like it's hunting season.
Members and staff will be required to wear masks at all times in the hall of the House. We have in store for me. But for now, a question was asked this morning by Ambassador Solomon about young people and how we were reaching young people. Well, young people, we always ask them, how do you want to be reached out to? And one of the main responses...
Her final score on the public backstab barometer, 9.7 out of 10, because her loyalty to voters disappears faster than a lizard shedding its tail. And now, for the final verdict. Nancy Pelosi's official swamp score, 9.2 out of 10. Her legacy? Coiling herself around the halls of power, tightening her grip on legislation, and ensuring that the swamp remains just the way she likes it. And before we go, let's take one last look at the swamp serpent in action. Absolutely breathtaking. And remember, the swamp never drains itself, but it sure does get deeper. So, who should we rank next on the swamp score? Drop your requests in the comments, and we'll see which political reptile we're tracking next.